Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Truckers Channel. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing great.
Super.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Joining us tonight is Doug Aderman, former driver, current safety director at Putnam Trucking in Effingham, Illinois. Doug, roughly how many trucks are they running over there now?
Oh, we got about 35.
35?
Yep.
Okay. Before we get into anything, a couple of things. Allie, you had a little scare last week, didn't you?
Last week or last night?
Well, let's go with last night.
Well, we had a tornado hit in our town over here in East Texas. Not too big. Downtown, it hit a bar and the entire roof flew off. Um, and then a adult store. I drove past it last night. I was curious. An adult store was also torn up, so that's kind of funny. Think of all the adult toys flying around everywhere. Kind of gives me kind of a giggle.
Now,
Um,
Sean will be
Uh,
down there. That's where he'll be headed. He's
oh,
roaming the
oh,
fields
God.
looking for all that.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, super fun.
Let's-
My husband and I decided to go pick up cupcakes for my mom during the tornado, so that was fun. We were kind of storm chasing a little bit.
Was there any Lana lube on the ground?
Oh, I didn't see none of those. But I don't want to say on here what I did see.
A Soul Sucker 3000.
Pretty. It's pretty funny. In my
Was,
opinion,
I,
it's pretty funny.
I'll tell
was,
you about that off the air, Doug.
was anybody hurt, Allie? Was there any, fatalities or injuries?
Oh no, sir. I don't think anybody was working at the time. I haven't heard of any kind of injuries. It wasn't a big tornado. It was pretty small.
Gotcha.
I know Lindale. That's about 40 minutes from us, or about an hour away from us. They had a level 1 tornado, which I don't think anybody was hurt then either. But there was a few houses and buildings torn down and all that. So these roofing jobs, they got a whole bunch of stuff to do. Got to start making their money.
Wow. I hate to hear that.
So,
Nature calls. You gotta do, or things happen.
Yep, you're right.
agree. So, Doug, how long have you been a safety director now at Putnam?
Without doing the math in my head, I'm wanting to say 18 years I've been here, and I can claim I drove 26 years, but I have more than that because I used to load trucks for my dad's trucking company when I was like 14. I'd go out to the farms and load them with grain and stuff like that. So I've pretty much been around trucks all my life.
I understand. You and I share a little bit of a history, too.
Yeah. Yeah. You've worked for me, Sean, and did a good
Yeah.
job. We've
I'm glad somebody noticed.
Well, you terminated your employment and left on good terms, which most drivers don't. I want to add that they don't have the courtesy that you had, and I think that's why we could remain friends through that we have the friendship we have, because I know I can trust you and you can trust me, and it's a two-way street.
It is. So, Allie, I know you're kind of short on time tonight, so did you have a couple questions you wanted to ask Doug?
Yeah. So because we got some weather coming up, I know we got a cold front coming in, at least down here in Texas. So, what precautions do y'all take whenever y'all have like a snowstorm? Do y'all shut down for a little while, or do y'all still run the trucks?
Um, I leave it up to the driver. That's a driver call. Um, for instance, when Sean, I don't think Sean ever threw chains, but I did have drivers in the past that would throw chains and chain up when we did the out west stuff. You get in them big snowstorms, and like Colorado requires it, and California definitely requires it during the snow, when there's snow present. So to answer your question, we leave it to the drivers, and to be honest, as I'm getting younger drivers in here versus people older like me and Sean, the chaining is becoming a thing of the past, that they will just sit the storm out. For the majority of my fleet will, if they're in the bad weather, they'll sit it out.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I figured. It'd be up to the drivers. I know some companies will do that. It's up to the drivers, and then some they'll. I mean, you still have to work no matter what. I know some shut down. But I'm gonna start asking truck drivers this, or even former truck drivers. So the CDL process, to get one, do you think that it should be a longer process due to all these? I know we had a whole bunch of uh, accidents from foreign drivers, but we also have them from legal drivers. Do you think that we should make the CDL process longer?
Boy, that's a tough question to answer, because I come from a background that I grew up with trucks, and honestly, I drove them illegally, obviously, because I was 13, 14 years old. But that's what we did back then too. I mean, it's a different time from when I grew up, and I we got to kind of separate that out too. That there's just some people that shouldn't even be in a truck, even if they had 5 years of training, but they still are. And there's people that they've had 6 months of training, and they're decent, pretty good drivers. Nobody can learn everything in a year or two. I mean, and Sean, you disagree or agree, but from when I drove a truck, I didn't run into any bad weather until probably the third year I was driving, and I learned what slick roads were. Snowpack, snow covered. I learned that when you hit the brake on an empty trailer, the trailer's going to try to pass you. Those are just things. You laugh, but it's true. You've been there. You can't tell me you haven't.
Oh, a Tokyo spin? Never.
But there's just some things that you have to experience, you have to learn, and hopefully you don't cause an accident or anything when that occurs. But back to the foreign drivers, I mean, I've heard your show before, and I totally agree with what has been said before. If you come to this country legally, you get your green card and your CDL, and you drive here legally, and the laws, I don't have a problem with that. But when you're over here stealing our jobs and working for nothing, cutting our rates, that isn't helpful to our economy. It's not helpful to our businesses. It's not even helpful to the states, because that money is not being turned back in, being recovered under, of course they'll buy, the foreigners will buy fuel and the things they have to have, but people like us and Sean, we're going to maintain our truck because that's our living, and we're going to spend the money to buy the tires, even though we could probably get another 1,000 miles or 2,000 or whatever. But at the same time,
People making tires right now. Oh.
Yeah, and it's hard to make $1 in trucking right now. I mean, the rates aren't very good, and it's a tough business right now.
Absolutely. So, whenever you were a driver, were you owner op, or were you home every night?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question too. Obviously when I was young, I was home every night, but then for a few years, I would consider myself regional. I wasn't like over the road, but I went to the surrounding states of around Illinois, to deliver, and of course I couldn't make it back in time, so I'd have to camp out overnight. So not real often. So mostly I got into a gig where I could be home every night, so that's basically what I took.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Um, I know my husband, he's thinking about getting his CDL. And that's kind of why I asked. Cause how long is it to get your CDL now? Like maybe a year?
Most you can go to them schools, and what I tell if he was to call me, I would tell him you're probably going to have to work for some crap company like Swift or JB
Warner.
Hunt, Schneider, yeah, Warner, all them guys, because they can afford people. The new people, they can afford it if you bang their truck up or whatever. But see, like us, our hands are tied for insurance reasons because you have to have 2 years experience.
Uh-huh.
But having said that, everybody has different rules on this, so you just got to kind of call around the different people. But my rule is if you can run 18 months without an accident and you've went to you have a CDL certificate, a school that you went to, I count that as 6 months, and I can count it as a year if you're accident free. But if you've had an accident in the last 2 years, you've had your CDL, my hands are tied. I can't. It's an insurance thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I was asking if it should be longer, if it's too short. In my opinion, I think it should be a longer process. There's too many drivers out here that drive like freaking idiots.
Yeah, and they just want to get behind the wheel and go as fast as they can, and
just want to be wheel holders. It's all.
Yeah, and I don't really paint the picture. I paint the picture of Sean being a driver like me, that I grew up in the 55 era, and what that means is the speed limit was 55. So we were rebels because we got to run 60, right, Sean? The cops pretty well leave you alone, and you could figure
61 in Ohio.
There you go. So you could figure your time better because at 60 mile an hour you're going a mile a minute. So it helped you because we didn't have computers, and we used a thing called road maps. And the GPS thing drives me crazy to this day because people don't know where they're. Yeah, there you go, Sean. They don't know where they're going, where they've been. To me, I enjoyed because I knew that, I was this close to this, or I've been there, or I just took a shortcut to go see this or to do that. And the drivers today just plug it in the GPS and go.
Uh-huh. And that's my dad. My dad, he's been a truck driver for as long as I can remember. I mean, I know he's always told me since I started driving, learn the roads. You won't always have the GPS.
Yep.
And
Well,
I'll call up my husband. I'll ask him, "Hey, where you at?" I don't know. I'm just following
yeah,
GPS. I'm like, "Well, you gotta figure it out. You gotta learn to read the signs." And which usually, like in the town, he's really good about that. He knows everywhere. He knows all the back roads. He knows where, like, he can go somewhere. Then he knows how to get back just from paying attention. But when he's driving over the road in his truck, it's not the same.
Yeah, and I get that. I could appreciate that. I mean, back when I drove, we didn't have GPSs. It was becoming a new thing, and it would have been nice to have a GPS sometime to get you out of I'm in the middle of Chicago and I don't know how to get out of here, and you can just turn your GPS on and get out. But the problem with that is you've seen the YouTube videos and everything of the Swift drivers and everything. They drive off of a road, or you got to have some common sense. If you turn off a paved road that is striped and you're turning onto a rock road in a rig, that's probably a red flag. You shouldn't be on that road. More than likely, you're probably not supposed to be there. But it's here we go with stupid things. Just over here, there's a bridge that crosses the Wabash River, and I had a driver that thank God he got stuck before he got there because the bridge is out, and his GPS was guiding him that way, and he was literally on a mud road and got stuck. And of course we had to send somebody out to pull him out, but had he kept going, I think he would have just drove off through the bridge. And, that's the kind of people we have working, I don't want to say I don't want to say all drivers are that way, because certainly I have good drivers, but it seems like, and I'm going to pick on your generation just don't get it. They need to have a little common sense.
Well, and I think it's the generation above.
Yeah.
Yeah, Allie knows where I'm going with that one.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
I said it's not just your generation; it's the generation above you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a few people, but my generation ain't the smartest. I don't like to claim Gen Z. Yeah, I do. Not a fan of them. A
Yeah.
lot of them. Well, I will admit, a lot of them do want to work. I mean, I'm one of the few, little percentage of the younger generation that actually wants a job, and then there's people that don't want to hire them. I would say, and this is kind of off topic, I full on agree and believe that college is a scam. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. I found that out after I went to college for phlebotomy. I got one job, and then nobody is willing to hire because of no experience, which I have a little bit of experience, but they don't even want a little bit. So I think if you want a good, decent job, go for truck driving, which I've even told my husband this, because you can go to school for a little bit, get out there on the road. If you get it with a good company, you can make a decent amount of money. And it also just depends on if you're owner op or if you're home every night, or it all just depends on the miles too.
Yeah. And I know we're getting off topic, but in my own life, I kind of agree with you about the education thing. I mean, I was on our school board for over 20 years at our local school, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be educated, so nobody take it that way. But my daughter wanted to be a veterinarian, and to be honest, she's a B student. She's not a straight A student, but she comes from a farm background. She was used to working with big animals, and she loved to work on the big animals. So she did all her schooling and all that, all the crap you got to do to get into veterinarian school. And they said, well, she probably won't make it the first time she applies. Well, here's the first scam. So every school she applied to, you have to pay them up front for an application, and it's $200 to $500. And I had her apply at different schools, so I give her about $2,000 a year just to apply, and I just took that money and threw it up in the air and let it blow away. So long story short, she applied 4 years in a row. And she wanted to be a large animal vet, which there is a humongous shortage of large animal vets. Everybody wants to take care of the puppies and the kitties. There's tons of small animal vets. So, but she couldn't get in school, to do this, because first of all, veterinarian school is only taught at very few colleges. And then the second part of that is they only take like 100 to 200 students a year, which is for a whole state. I mean, and like she went, I'll just say it. She went to the Iowa State, and it's a good school. I'm not going to say anything bad about that school, but they have a vet program. I believe the number was 140 students that they had. And when you get into vet school, the first thing they do is try to flunk you out, because they want to separate the men from the boys, so to speak. And, of course, she never got that far, which I wish she would have had the opportunity to do. But, I don't think it's set up right. I mean, I don't believe that it should be that way, because me coming from a non-college background, well, I'll put it this way. Do you want an A student driving driving your truck that knows how to do it in a book, or do you want a B student that had the actual experience doing it? And then my last point is my daughter got into debt, $200,000, and she still don't have a doctorate in veterinarian. So I know exactly where you're coming from, Allie. So you're not the only one.
Most definitely.
Well, and to bring up a very quick point of what you both been talking. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was trained to be a bulk fuel specialist. That's a fancy name for somebody who knows how to hold a gas nozzle. That's what your tax dollars paid for, by the way, too, Aderman. 5 weeks for me to learn how to hold a gas nozzle. But I was told I could go to any airport in the United States and apply for a job and get it. Because I had that experience. I get out of the Corps, I go to Combs Gates in Indianapolis, fill out an app. 8 months later, they finally called me. 8 months later. And they informed me that they didn't need an assault fuel individual. They needed somebody that fill up an air.
Yeah. Well, I know we got off.
Not that hard.
Yeah, I know. I know we got off topic, but I felt it.
No, but the point of it is that they can tell you what all this stuff does. Whether you came in the Marine Corps or the military, went to a school, the bottom line of it is fill your hopes full of dreams. This is why I went into driving, because I knew damn good and well I could depend on myself doing this job.
Yeah. And that's the good thing about being a truck driver, because I'm not gonna lie, I miss doing it. I only do it now because, well, basically I have to. I mean, I have, my wife has health issues, and I have a small farm and stuff that I have to take care of. So I'm kind of stuck here. But, most guys want the independence of, I can start my day at 8 o'clock, or I can start at 4 o'clock in the morning, or I can sleep till noon, or, you have some give and take. It's not punching a time clock in a factory. You're not doing the same repeated thing every day. Every day is kind of different.
Wait a minute. Sleep till noon at Putnam? Are you kidding?
Hey. You can if you went to bed at 6.
No, I remember one guy pulled a miracle out of his ass in Chicago to Sacramento and back.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't think he would be.
Oh.
Luckily, I didn't have to throw chains that week.
Yeah, there you go.
Alex, is there anything else you wanted to ask? Before Doug and I go down memory lane.
I think that's all the questions that I got. Which actually I gotta hop off of here. But Doug, it's nice talking to you. I appreciate having you on, and I know Sean does as well.
I'm a fan, so yeah. It's not because of Sean either, just so you know.
Oh, stop. Well,
thanks, Aderman. Thanks,
always
Aderman.
welcome to
really
come back on.
That.
Yeah, I'll come back on.
All right.
It's all good.
Allie, catch me in Discord later tonight.
All right, I will. Holler at y'all later. Appreciate you, Doug.
See you, Allie.
All right, have fun. All right, Doug, let's get to the nuts and bolts of some things. A lot of the non-compliant drivers came over lately, and they basically flooded the market like you and I have always discussed, even on the phone. Mm-hmm. What do you think would be part of the reason to get rid of it? How would we go about getting all that out? Just going right back to the way it was?
Well, I mean, starting here in my home state, Illinois, we've had 3 governors in prison, and one of them was selling driver's license, aka CDLs. So, the corruption in the industry, and I don't know, I read in one of my e-blogs that somebody in, I think it was New Jersey, somebody out on the East Coast, that he was basically giving people CDLs too. I mean, I'm a person that if you earn it, that's fine, but I'm not giving it to you. You know that from just working for me. So I think part of the corruption in the government would, if that would go away, which I know it won't, but that would help. That would be a start. And perhaps there needs to be, if Allie's generation is seeing that we need to improve the CDL system, as far as new drivers, then so be it. But I think that the school should be longer, more training, because if you get a guy out of school, he needs to know what an alternator is. He don't necessarily have to know how to put it on or any of that stuff. I don't expect my drivers to be a mechanic, but I do expect you to, when you call me and say I got a water leak, well, what side of the engine is it coming from? I don't know. I didn't get out and look. Well, why not? I need to know.
And then you find out it's raining.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that happen, unfortunately. Yeah,
when I sit back and I look at some of their drivers from when you and I, and from our generation versus today's generation, I noticed a lot are sugarcoated.
A lot of them are what? You cut out.
I said I noticed a lot of the drivers of today coming up are sugarcoated.
Oh, yeah.
They're given just enough information, just enough, get them enticed, and they don't really sit down and explain to them like it was. When you take a look at Allie's case, Allie was pretty much raised in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all her dad's ever done.
Yeah.
You and I, we came from trucking families as well. I mean, I'm fourth generation of my family.
Yeah.
So, but these ones that have come in, they think they're going to make a quick buck. And, well, I know a couple of those too. No, you're not going to make a quick buck in trucking. You just might as well hang it up.
No, you'd have to be, for that to happen, you'd have to be extremely, extremely lucky. And just the first thing is you got to have good paying freight, and good luck finding that. The second thing is you have to have a truck that is very mechanically sound and doesn't break down, because as an owner operator that you don't think much about your tires till it's time to replace them, and you're like, they cost how much? Yeah, it's a reality. And
well, my stair tires for $2,100.
Yeah, and I believe that. The whole thing, all this maintenance has went up, in the last 4 or 5 years. It's skyrocketed, because I guess materials cost more, obviously, but the rates really haven't reflected the increase that we are, and drivers need more money, to live, and I understand that. So there's some dynamics you got to deal with, being a manager. But at the same time, we can't give everything away. We have a company to run, and I feel that Putnam Trucking isn't here for their own personal gain. They just want to make a living, and as you know, none of them live in a 10-bedroom house, or anything like that. They are all down to earth people. They live. In fact, most of the drivers live better than they do, as far as the type of house and vehicle they drive and all that. So I just people don't understand the profit aspect of it, because there's very little meat on the potato when you get down to it. There's very little profit in trucking, and you got to watch.
You're right, because the one main thing I see about it is, and I look at, everybody sees the front end of the operation. They say they get a check every payday, but they don't see the back of the operation.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't. Well, you got all the you. Let's say you made out $3,000 this week. I know drivers still can.
Yeah.
I know one in particular. But then you look, you had to get a set of tires, you had to get his air conditioner fixed, you had to get a couple other things done.
Mm-hmm.
Service came involved. Services aren't cheap anymore.
No. Well, you said the magic word, air conditioning, uh, which is I was told, I don't remember where I read it, but that's the number one driver complaint on usually anything that goes wrong with a truck, because that's for your comfort. And I get that, even though the first 3 trucks I had never had air conditioning. So I kind of see it, but I kind of don't at the same time. But usually our policy on that is we want to get the truck back here to Effingham to work on it if at all possible, because we know if you pull into the repair shop, they are going to say, well, it needs a compressor, and then they put a compressor on it, and then and a dryer. Well, it's also going to need a condenser. It was leaking a little bit, and whether it was or not, you'll never know. So by the time we get out of that shop, I've paid as much as $7,000-8,000 to have the whole AC system replaced, and we know damn good and well we could have had it replaced here for 2.
Well, I mean, just like that other truck I had, they kept saying it was the electrical core, electrical housing. It was causing my check light engine to come on.
Yeah.
All right, fix it. Well, it didn't fix it. Then they wanted to fix the other side. And I said, no, we're not doing this until you pinpoint it.
Yeah.
Well, we can't pinpoint it unless we replace that line. Well, then you don't need to work on the truck.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know sometimes it comes to that you got to change parts on it or whatever. But there's times that, if you're dealing with a computer problem, who knows? I've seen it in our shop both ways. We replaced the computer, it didn't help. We replaced the computer, it did help. It's just something that with the electronics on these things today, it is something that is very expensive, very time consuming. But more than likely, it's probably something physical, like a broken wire or a grounds off, just something crazy little. But it's finding that. That's, as a driver, you probably, a mechanic would understand that, but a driver wouldn't. You charge me, $2,000 to repair a broken wire. Yeah, because I had to peel all the harness off and look at it and go through it. And so, I mean, we've replaced wiring harnesses before just because we couldn't find anything else wrong. And
Well,
again, that fixes it sometimes, and sometimes it don't.
well, let's get into another thing I know you're starting to get into as well. Uh, they've got a lot of new gadgets on these trucks, warning device systems and all this other. What's your thoughts on all this?
Well, let's start with the cameras. Okay, I know you're talking about something different. We'll get there, but the cameras were a blessing. Any driver that doesn't like the forward facing, I'm not talking about driver facing, I'm talking about forward facing. Any driver that doesn't accept that, to me, that tells me he's not a very good driver, because he's trying to hide something. He's not a good driver, because that camera is only recording what you do, and you shouldn't be doing bad things. You shouldn't be running red lights or whatever you're doing. And I think the majority of the drivers get that. Yeah, that's another. They'll be on the cell phone. Exactly. Although we don't really catch that, but you can tell by the way the truck is veering left and right, that they're texting or watching YouTube or whatever they're doing. But I don't have a big problem with that I know of. As far I've never. Well, I can't say never, but I've rarely caught people doing that. But I would also like to have side cameras, but that's kind of a dream, because that's a big cost. And any driver that isn't for that, because most of your accidents are going to happen on your left or right side. As far as other equipment, like the VORAD, I call it VORAD. It's the radar braking system. Um, that is one of the worst things they ever put on a truck. And yes, I'm a safety director, but it's caused people, the truck is slammed on the brakes because it's seen an overhead object and thought it was going to run into it. They don't work right. They're expensive to repair. I mean, to me, there's a few pluses to them, but again, if the driver is doing his job, paying attention, driving his truck like he should be, we wouldn't need that VORAD system on there. I don't know, other things are, I don't know. Help me out with something. What else you got on there?
Well, I mean, I can understand a couple of warning. Uh, I think the main concern that everybody was having with the cameras, and actually I can relate to this, is nobody needs to know what's going on behind my curtain. I'm back there to sleep. I'm not back there for you to view. And some of these companies were putting cameras in the bunks.
Yeah.
And I don't
And
use their imagination to wonder what was going on there.
And with that being said, I flat out asked our insurance company about that. And I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you straight out that I am opposed to that because I think it's an invasion of the driver's privacy. I don't, especially when it's your 10-hour break or you're on your 34 or what, especially then it's your business what you're doing in there, not mine. And I don't have time to monitor what Sean is doing in his truck on his 30. I mean, to be honest, I don't care as long as he's not moving or under our dispatch or whatever. And I'm just really opposed to it because it is a violation of your privacy. And what the insurance guy rebutted with really shocked me. He said, "We don't like them either." And I looked at him really funny and I said, "Well, why wouldn't you guys, you can catch that driver that he's on his phone texting or whatever." And he said, "Yeah, but we're going to be able to tell that with a forward facing because as I said a while ago, you're going to be veering to the left and right. And, things aren't going to be like you normally drive when you're doing the texting or tuning the radio or reaching down to get your sandwich or whatever you're doing that you shouldn't be doing while you're driving." And he said we can tell that just by the forward facing camera. And he said, "Can we prove it?" Well, maybe not necessarily, but we know. So he said, "We will never make you." Our insurance company said this, not all insurance companies, but he said, "We will never make you put a driver facing camera in." So I kind of felt
Well, and I even knew of one particular company. They're no longer in business. They had a roller camera. And what they would do is they put it right underneath the top bunk. And then the dispatch was able to move that camera remotely across the bottom just to see if they could see what was going on. They actually at one time was talking about putting motion detectors in the bunk to make sure you were physically in the truck and in the bunk.
Again, I think that's just a flat invasion of your privacy. So I would never advocate for that, nor I mean, I'm just this stubborn because I'm this old. I would never enforce anything like that because if you can't discipline yourself, because I mean, Sean, what's the consequence of you going down the road and texting somebody? You're going to have an accident. Well, if you have a minor accident, you got by with it basically. But what if you kill somebody?
Well, and then you have it said.
Yeah. I mean, that's not the position any driver wants to be in is
No.
death in an 18-wheeler, whether it's another 18-wheeler, a car, what doesn't matter. There's so much litigation, and I mean it's terrible. I mean we've never had a fatality, knock on wood, but you know we of course we've had accidents, but most of the accidents are just stupid. You know, some you can't help, but some are just, and this day and age, again, back to the forward facing one, we've caught a lot of accidents that the person we quote unquote hit ended up hitting us. And the camera shows that. You know, I just had one the other day. He was in a roundabout, and it said that tractor trailers must take up both lanes because you can't make the swing in it. So our driver was going on around, and this car just shot around him and thought she could make it in front of him, and she smacked him in the steer tire and bounced off. And she's telling the cop that it's his fault. And he said, you know, the driver, of course, said, "I don't see how it's my fault. She was passing me on a roundabout." And he says, "We have camera footage of it." So, you know, after he looked at the footage, he give her a nice fat ticket. So, you know, that would have been a scenario. The cop would have probably believed the lady, and we would have got the ticket because we're the professional driver, you know. And
Well, and I do know for a fact in Indiana that when former governor stepped down, of course, he had served these 2 terms, that he had made it mandatory that all tractor trailers have the right of way in the roundabouts.
that's not a bad law, you know. Um, and you know, I'm kind of flipping back and forth. Sorry, but on the CDL training, I think that they need to train all drivers, whether you're commercial or getting a car license. They need to teach in school that an 18-wheeler can't stop like a car. An 18-wheeler has wider turns than a car. You know, I know it's common sense to me and you, but look how long we've been doing this. But it's not to young people, especially people
No,
from a
and
city that.
this is kind of where I bring up, like you just saying, we grew up in urban America, you and I, so we were used to stuff like this. But when you get into the cities, they're not so trained of how to pass a tractor with farm implements. They're not so patient about it. All they know is put their foot down on the floor and get around. That's all
Yeah,
they know. They are not taught the patience that you and I were taught.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's part of where you're different. A lot of where it comes from with the drivers and the quality of the drivers you get. And I see it out here on the road every day, even with some of the with road drivers. They don't have the patience.
yeah, yeah. And you can't have road rage and or whatever you want to call it. You know, that is not helpful at all. You know, the way I guess I look at things different than a lot of people do, because I grew up in the you know, actually I grew up in a rural area. And you know, if you have a tractor on the road, you automatically know, because back in the day, our farmers never put out slow moving vehicle signs or had lights or any of that kind of stuff like they do today. And you just knew to slow down. And you know, it's like my dad said once in a while, "You're still going faster than if you was walking." So, you know, everybody's always in a big hurry and to get nowhere for no reason.
Well,
Um,
that's part of the reason why they had such a hard time with the Amish up in northern Indiana.
mm-hmm.
A couple of them got killed one year. A couple families got killed. They wanted to put electric lanterns on the seat on the back of their buggies. They wouldn't do it, so they had to come up with the SMB sign.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only way the Amish would agree to that, because they even said the lights will go with the turn of the wheel. The Amish came back and said, no, that's still electricity. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
still generating electricity, that's against our religion. So that's why they came up with the slow moving vehicle signs to put on mandatory. But
And they pretty well only travel during daylight hours. I mean, I know there's some exceptions, but especially on the major roads, you know, you might find one in back road or something. But on a back road, honestly, you don't need to drive 70 mile an hour. If you're in that
no,
big a hurry, then I don't know, just quit driving. I don't know. That really irritates me, just as if you can't tell. But I think that you know,
For sure.
why be in that big a hurry?
I agree. Uh, we got a few minutes left. I want to get on a subject that you and I both love to talk about:
Uh-oh.
broker transparency.
No, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
I
you know,
cannot understand why a broker needs $4,000 against a $7,000 load when all
yeah.
they're doing is sitting in the seat. I never
Well,
understood.
I mean, to give your audience some background, I always contract hauled. I didn't know much about brokers till I started working here, and I seen what some of them brokers were. You know, I know what they had. What they had in their hands on the load, but we was getting a very small percentage of that. I'm thinking all he has is a phone and a computer. That's all he's got in this. And like you said, he's making $4,000 on the deal. We're making two, and we're doing all the work. And I don't think that's right. Um, I mean, yes, they should make something because I know they have a little more overhead than what I said, but nonetheless, uh, it's not the overhead that our company has or you have, Sean. Your overhead's high too. You got truck payments, you got truck insurance, fuel. I mean, we can go on and on. And they have a phone bill and a internet bill basically, and maybe some software involved. So yes, I think that broker transparency needs to happen. In fact, it wouldn't break my heart if they just do away with brokers, but I don't think that'll ever happen because you have a big factory and they just want to say, "Here, Sean, you take care of all our loads. We'll give you, $10,000 a load and whatever it's your problem to get our product out of here." And that's why the companies do it. It is a headache. Transportation is a headache, which is why um, there can be big money in it, but those days are pretty much going away because with the computers and everything and the internet and everything, everybody interweaving like that, it's companies are learning that they're paying way too much and truckers will work cheaper. And then we have the influx of foreign drivers that are even making things worse, cutting our rates. So yeah. So what do you want?
Well,
What do you want to finish? What do you want to say about
I
that?
mean, the bottom line of it is we know that a lot of the foreign drivers are sending the money back home.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and I don't have a problem with them trying to take care of their families. But the problem that I do have is don't be cutting into our rates just to satisfy your rates. Because quite frankly, you may be able to live off $10 a day over in India. We can't do that here.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, $10 gets me a pack of cigarettes if I'm lucky and a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that there's anything that'll ever be changed about that because there's so many advocates, for the brokers because there's big money in brokerage. If you get set up in the right whatever, what I would say, the right company. If you're brokering for a huge company, then like Procter and Gamble or somebody like that. I get it, but
TQL does not need that kind of money.
no, which is why they're one of the leading logistics companies in the country. They get the freight. And,
I mean, I can tell you stories of when I had my own authority about how I ran around with TQL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell you one that from here.
Yeah.
But they think they run the show, and no, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, while we're on broker freight, is they lie so bad. I'm just going to call a spade here, and not all of them do, but there's some that hey, they got your load ready. If you show up early, they'll load you. Your appointment isn't tomorrow till 8 o'clock, but if you show up tonight, they'll have you out of there by midnight. So you go there and it's, noon the next day before they have you done, because the broker just wanted you there to make sure that you picked up that load before somebody else come in and picked up that load. Because
Well, and I've had
yeah,
it's like that. I went to a cold storage not too long ago. Told to be there at 8. I was there at 7:45. Well, your load don't pick up till 8 o'clock tonight.
yeah.
The
So
load
there-
I'm on today technically wasn't supposed to be picked up till tomorrow, but one of the guys on the dock said, "No, we're not playing that game. It's ready. Get it out of here."
yeah. And you're lucky that they have workers like that, that they
Well, they want the dock space.
yeah. But I mean, some places don't see it that way. Nope, you're not getting out of here till tomorrow because that's when you're scheduled,
Because
I
they
don't
one thing I noticed about produce houses, they got to constantly have that space. They
Yeah.
got to constantly keep moving that product because they don't
Yeah.
want to sit in their dock spoiling.
yeah,
Once it's on your trailer, it's off their hands.
yeah, they don't care then. It's your butt then. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
But they constantly need that dock space.
Yeah,
Sometimes it works out great in your favor, and sometimes it don't.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think me and you will ever change the broker transparency thing, but it is sure a sore thumb, to talk about.
I just don't understand why they need to make $1,000 on.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know how much time we got left, but something I'd like to talk about is we'll never get done, but here we go. Is hours of service.
Okay.
I think something needs to be done with that. It's so stupid that you can't stop your clock once you start it, except with a 10-hour break, or if you do a split sleeper, you can do a 3 and a 7 or a 2 and an 8 and 8 and 2 and 7 and 3. But it still doesn't give you the full hours if you do a split sleeper. And that is so confusing to drivers, and me included, as many years as I've done it. I don't always get it right. It just needs to be simplified and not overthought like it is. At least that's the way what's your opinion on it?
Well, I mean, the thing of it is, you got to remember, you and I came back from the days of the 5-4 split.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of drivers don't remember that.
No.
You could run 5 hours, sleep 4, run 5, sleep 4. You were constantly rotating the clock. This also took care of the parking problem that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truck stops weren't as full. You get into Love's before 7 o'clock, you find a parking space, bravo, but
Mm-hmm.
you ran. With an hours of service program that the way they got right now, and I've had a couple talks with Larry Miner over this as well. For those that don't know, Larry Miner is the heads up at the FMCSA. He seems to think that they've took care of it, and no, they haven't. Really haven't. Because if a driver stops his clock, it takes him 4 or 5 hours. He should be allowed the time left of that 11-hour day, not when that clock says I have to stop.
Yeah.
And Sleeper Bird does not always stop your clock either.
No. I always tell the driver, think of it as it'll slow your clock down, but it's not going to stop it. And it's going to save you on your 70, at the end of the week. But, usually it's not much help. There just needs to be a way, so many times that you pull into or you drive all night to get to the shipper, you get there, you get to have your 10-hour break, and just say you have to go in at 8 o'clock and your break is over. You've had, say, 11-hour break. So you start your clock at 8 o'clock and you get there and the shipper says, well, we don't have your load ready. We're running behind. So you've already started your clock at 8, and at 2 o'clock they release you. Well, you wasted 6 hours of your day, and you legally have to log it on duty because you're there trying to get loaded.
See, and I think
I
Sean
just-
Duffy was looking into something like that. With that being said, I'm hoping they get something changed on it.
Yeah.
Some drivers think we don't need any hours of service out here, but
Well,
I'm not too keen on it.
the bad thing about no hours of service or here is you'd have companies forcing drivers to not get sleep, and then it would be unsafe. I'm not an advocate to abolish the hours of service. I just think that they need some more flexibility on them. It shouldn't be such a hard case, you know. And
But I also go ahead.
well, the other can of worms that you just opened was parking. I hope there's a lot of viewers from Illinois that's listening to this, because this rest area over here at Effingham, the eastbound rest area, has been closed. I'm going to say, and it's probably more, but I'm going to say conservatively, it's been closed 7 or 8 years. So no trucks can get in there to park or anything. They say that there's mold or something in there, but why can't we knock that building down, get the moldy building out of there, and if nothing else, don't have any facilities, but have a place for truck parking? You know, we're too busy. We're too busy running around trying to take our gun rights away and trying to take all this stuff away from the Illinois citizens, but we don't have the money to fix this, you know, and we're short parking because
that's because JP's too busy up in Chicago right now.
Yeah, exactly. And we're nowhere near Chicago, so he don't care, you know.
He's too busy fighting for the illegals.
Yeah. Well, Donnie will take care of him.
Who will?
Donnie Trump.
Ah, yeah. Well, you know, we did have one of your governors, a resident of Terre Haute for a while, the one that was handing out CDLs.
Yeah, well, imagine that.
Yeah, he was a resident of Terre Haute for a while.
Well, it's not.
The other one ended up in Colorado.
Yeah, well, yeah. It won't surprise me when this one goes to prison, but you know, whatever. I don't want to get into politics, but it's just frustrating that we could have more parking around here.
No, because I don't want to hear it from Allie that she missed out on a political talk.
Well,
we'll bring you back, and you and Allie could have a good time on politics.
There you go.
Sometime.
There you go. There you go. Mm-hmm.
So, but she had some things she had to do with her family tonight.
That's okay. Yeah.
I just told her, I said, well, you know, it's family.
I couldn't see a time when me and you couldn't find something to talk about.
Oh, well, you know, we usually have here or there.
Yeah.
But it's that magic hour, Doug, and I've got to get across to Idaho. I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I really appreciate this. I know we've been trying to set this up for a while now. We tried to have her on once before when we had the gunsmith on.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of a signal problem.
Yep. Sorry about that.
I'm glad. Well, it happens. I'm glad you agreed to come on tonight. So, just a couple of quick notes before we get off. Before we sign off here, the FMCSA right now has a docket out where you can have your put your comment up about the illegals being here with the non-domicile CDLs. Go check them out on the Truckers Channel Facebook page. When you read through it, it'll be a link that says click here. You can go get your opinion, give your opinion of whatever you want. Also coming out is HR 5800. It is sponsored by two senators, one out of North Carolina. They are right now getting ready to crack down on the non-domicile drivers. You might want to read into that. And if you think it's worth it, make a phone call to Washington and show your support. HR 5800. Right? So that's all I got for tonight. Doug, thank you for coming on. Remember, this is the Truckers Channel.